Right, so in an art world that is constantly favoring the newest techniques and approaches to painting, what draws you to championing a painting language that is rooted in historical and pastoral painting?
I think it's a question of what attracts me personally to the appearance of paintings, apart from approach, and more traditional, classically influenced schools of painting, namely the pastoral, which are about light and mood, just tend to be my cup of tea. And when asked this sort of question before, I've sort of equated it with people being asked, what's your favorite type of music? And if you like traditional music, it still has a relevance, because things come out of tradition. And I just find when talking to art colleagues and peers who share the same sort of interest as I do in the fundamentals and the older looking stuff, if you will, there's room for more growth of expression because you have that basis.
World War II imagery, particularly Spitfire fighter jets, reoccur in your work. What is their significance for you?
Well, the Supermarine Spitfire is a symbol historically is a very standout piece of aircraft from the Second World War. And I had the opportunity over a number of years to work on a number of commemorative commissions, both private and for the armed forces. I would need to backtrack a little bit. Since my childhood, I was very interested in military aircraft, and I was one of those boys that made models and painted them and that sort of thing. So in revisiting a lot of the machinery of the Second World War and the paintings that I was making for these commissions, that was a particular airplane because of its iconic importance to the war, namely the Battle of Britain, that I kept revisiting. So apart from that specific work that was military history in nature, I started revisiting just the look of that plane in my regular work as well, and popping it into sky landscape, sky scenics, that sort of thing. And I just think it's a very attractive looking plane, just like people who might like motorcycles or cars are attracted to the aesthetic of those types of machineries, or speedboats or something. I just happen to have an attachment to that particular aircraft, and especially because of Canada's attachment to it as well, as in the Battle of Britain, because it essentially changed the course of the war.
Why did you choose the title An Archive of Skies for your current solo exhibition?
In this particular body of work, which is mainly landscape, pastoral, scenic, as usually when I've finished a body of work and everything has been sussed out and I pick and choose what's relevant to the show that I'm submitting, it seemed to me that the leaning or the main spirit of the show seemed to be about sky and cloud and ether and light. And again, if I were to backtrack, for as long as I can remember being interested in landscape painting, probably the primary facet of that would be sky, because that is where the light and the mood come from and are generated from, and that's what tempers the composition. And then interestingly, I had the good fortune to meet a noted Canadian painter by the name of Ken Danby when I was young, and I visited his studio, and he encouraged me to work on skies because he felt that that was something that was both challenging and just a very interesting subject matter, and that stuck with me. And I've kept really trying to push that or include that or progress in that nature of my painting over all my life thus far. So I thought the title, An Archive of Skies, described what was coming out of my studio this time.
You create your landscape scenes based on memories of vistas from the UK, Ireland, and sometimes Canada. Why do you choose to work with imagination rather than specific source imagery?
I do combine a lot of different things. I think that it's both interesting and valuable to me when a person might be compelled toward one of my landscapes to not necessarily have to identify it as a specific place. I enjoy when somebody says, this particular area that you've painted reminds me of this place. And with that, you get an attachment of emotion or nostalgia, recollection, and that's the connection that somebody can have with a painting. So often in the process of painting, I might change the color scope of the palette as it evolves. And with doing that, whether I go from warmth to cold, lighter to darker, sort of clearer, more serene skies to stormier skies, I'm sort of mixing and matching. In my reference material that I have, which are lots of periodicals, art history books and magazines and photographs, and of course now we have the internet, where everything is available. I do a lot of mixing and matching. So I might take a photograph of a specific place and then transplant a sky that's more contrived or fantastic, just to make it moodier, if you will. And also in making it more of an ethereal composition. If I'm working from a photograph, most oftentimes remove all the modern references, whether they're houses or people or certainly vehicles and that sort of thing. So it's a melange of the fantastical, the imaginative, and things that are actually real. And it just depends what works. Sometimes it doesn't work, sometimes it does work.
Who do you consider to be your artist canon?
I would cite for landscape or pastoral from the American School of Paintings. I've been very influenced by painters like Thomas Eakins, N.C. Wyeth, Winslow Homer, to name a few, Georgia Ness. I like very much painters who, and I keep using these adjectives like moody and dramatic, who painted, whether they were from Hudson Valley School or the tonalist movement, a lot of light, a lot of emotion. And then in figurative painting, the sort of the British background, Lady Lord Thompson Gray, and among the great romantic painters would be, of course, John Constable, who had very, very moody skies. So I've never had one favorite sort of school or artist in particular whose set of rules and directives and values apply just to me. It's a whole bunch of people. But I feel that the ones I've cited have some commonality, even though they lived in different times.
Historical painting was a means of capturing moments experienced by society, while pastoral and landscapes were often representative of the everyday worker or documentation of the land. You move between both genres. What do they achieve for you?
I think that when painting landscape painting, again, these types of works are emotive. And I know how they make me feel when I'm compelled to paint them and as I'm painting them, and if I'm happy with them when they're finished. And I think people who are drawn to them connect in some way with a similarity of how I feel. I do throw a bit of a switch in my mind when painting figurative work, because I'm not as interested in allegorical pieces that have to be deciphered specifically. I'm more interested in creating, with a genre piece that is figurative in nature, something that people can connect with. And I have shared with people in past shows where the subject matter was moreover figurative, that I like a fly on the wall, to listen to how people interpret the interaction of the figures in the scenario of the painting. And if there are 5 or 10 or 100 different stories that can be composed out of what I've painted, I find that very fulfilling and entertaining. So painting each and either do different things, and I'm motivated differently when painting either of those subject matters, but I still continue to do both, and I find both very fulfilling.
And you studied art history at McGill. Was there a particular moment when you knew you wanted to be a painter?
I've always been interested in painting. I was encouraged, as my mother had been an art teacher at a young age, and the program that I took at McGill was both painting and art history. And my choice in going there was because of what was offered in the 80s, and that was through the art history faculty, a program where you studied methods and materials firstly for a year, and then you studied methods and approaches. So the more I learned in that program, and I feel that all artists continue to learn. The learning process never stops. I know that I'm still learning, I'm still evolving, and I'm still changing a lot of the approaches. And insofar as materials, I might change my color palette and tonality as well. But I started to feel a compulsion or a hope or a belief that perhaps this is something I may be able to pursue as a livelihood, and not as a hobby. But it still continues to be a growth and an experience. I don't contend that I know everything. I don't think anybody does. I'm continuing to evolve.